Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm your host, Bret Boone, and today on the program, I'm joined by a seven-time All-Star. He won 5 Gold Gloves. He's a four-time Silver Slugger winner, and he won back-to-back NL MVPs in 1982 and 83. Ladies and gentlemen, Dale Murphy. Dale, we finally got it done. Thanks for coming on the Boone Podcast.
Hey, thank you so much, Brett. It's an honor to be on. I know you've had a little trouble scheduling me, and I apologize.
You're a diva.
I should have given you I should have given you my wife Nancy's information. She's a lot better at doing this scheduling.
For those of you who listen to the Boone Podcast, and I say this completely kidding, me and Dale it was just lack of communication, but we eventually got it done. But I was thinking to myself, I'm trying to book Beyonce here, and I can't get her on.
Thanks for your patience.
We just recently ran into each other in Atlanta, both back there for an alumni activity. And I Truist Field, and I hope I'm saying it right, is the newest Atlanta Braves park since it seems like we get one now every 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
It was really a cool place. I stayed in the hotel that was hooked, the Omni, which is hooked to kind of the field, and it was like downtown Disneyland. It seemed like outside of the hotel, where it's like you weren't in a real city. I felt like it was recreated, but it was pretty awesome. I mean, I from a fan standpoint, if you're an Atlanta Brave, everybody wearing Brave memorabilia, everybody had a Braves jersey or shirt on. And there were little shops and restaurants. I know you have a place down there, Murph's, but I was really impressed. The Braves have always had a big following, but I played Turner Field. The 1 year I played for the Braves, obviously played against the Braves for a lot of years back in when it was Fulton County, where you played a lot of, your whole career. But I'll tell you, you know what it did to me? It kind of made me feel old. I'm like, wait a minute. When I was a kid, I'm playing in Fulton County. We get this brand new shiny ballpark in Atlanta. I get traded to the Braves for that 90. We had a 99 run. I got to go to a World Series with the Braves, but we got this brand new shiny Turner Field. It was a little bigger than I liked. I liked Fulton County Stadium. Ball flew a little bit better there.
Yeah.
But it's like I take a nap, I wake up, and there's a new ballpark in Atlanta, and they're especially this last 5 or 6 years, they're on another one of those big time runs.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right, Brett. Especially Turner Field. They were only there 20 years, and it seems like a long time, but not for stadiums. But what some of the clubs are running into, Arizona's having a little discussion about their stadium. I know Denver's even gone through a little bit with their stadium. I think what they're finding is a lot of these stadiums, and that's what happened at Turner Field, was they needed so much money to kind of catch up to the times. And then the Braves wanted to develop around the stadium, and they got into a big hassle with the city. The two obvious ones that we need to figure out what they're going to do with their stadium is Oakland. Looks like they're going to go to Vegas and Tampa Bay. So things they get updated so quick. You're right. I mean, it was kind of a surprising move for everybody, but their vision of what they did at Truist Park with the Battery Atlanta in that whole surrounding area is, it's incredible. It only took them 2.5 years, when you think about it, to build that little community with apartments, shops, restaurants. The energy there, what they've created there, the energy is just incredible. I think they had 50,000 people in that area outside the ballpark, Brett, during the World Series and playoffs, and 40,000 people inside. I mean, it was insane. So they've had over 100 professional sports teams from around the world come and see what they've done, and it is the model for the future. Some stadiums are trying to retrofit an experience like the Braves have created there with the Battery. It's fantastic, and they got a very good team, as you know. So, yeah, I agree with you. I talked to Chipper. You talk about playing in that ballpark in Turner Field, and yeah, I'm glad I didn't play in that ballpark. Chipper told me he never hit a cheap one there, and I was like, man, I hit a few cheap ones in Fulton County Stadium. The new ballpark seems fair, and you're right, they got a great team. But what they've created there, you're exactly right. It's an incredible thing, and it's really the model for a future. Anybody building a stadium is going to have to create that mixed use facility immediately around the ballpark.
Yeah, because we, as baseball players, as ex-baseball players, we go to a million stadiums and we've seen them all.
Yeah,
But for me to walk away, it really did make an impression on me. I was
yeah,
really impressed with it. Uh, just getting up the day of the game that we went to that night. I mean, it was 12 o'clock. I was out looking for lunch, and it's like a full-on block party. Like these guys are
yeah,
ready for a regular season game. Now the Phillies were in town. A lot of Phillies fans and on the East Coast, but still, 12 o'clock, it's buzzing already. And
yeah,
after the game, it's like, all right, I wanted to go down and get an ice cream cone after the game. It's like, good luck waiting in line with
yeah,
that many people. But
yeah.
as a player, you couldn't ask for anything cooler
Oh,
than that. Just
absolutely.
that electricity around the ball, around the ballpark and your team. For you, you've got a restaurant there. When you go to your restaurant, when people you're walking around Atlanta these days, what do fans want to talk to you about? Because your time in Atlanta was a different time. It
Yeah,
was the TBS days. It was
right,
WGN with the Cubs. I remember because when you first started playing, that's my childhood. That's right in my
right,
wheelhouse. And I was a baseball rat. So other than, when I was at home watching dad's games in Philly,
right.
the only game in town was the Braves or the Cubs. And it
Yeah,
was kind of you were America's team on the Superstation. So and you were the star on that team. Anyway, when you're walking around the city today in Atlanta, in Georgia, when you're in that part of the country, what do people ask Dale Murphy?
yeah, you're right, Brett. Different time, and very thankful to play at that time. Let me tell you, it was. Um, we had a few good years. We didn't have a lot of good years, but we had a few good years. Ted Turner put us on, the Superstation, got us on TBS, and anywhere you had cable or a dish, if you're out in the country, yeah, you could watch TBS or you could watch the Cubs on WGN. So um, that's what people really want to know about. I mean, the restaurant's been fun. I got some memorabilia up there, so it's been fun. But it's really been fun, to your question, to reconnect with people and fans from that era. When you're playing, you're always trying to protect your privacy, and you kind of careful where you go out, and you just kind of protect you and your family. You want privacy, but now at my age, it's fun for me to reconnect
Yeah,
and to talk about those old days. I love to talk about the old days. People, they usually ask me, where's Bob Horner?
yeah. He's playing golf somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. So Bob's doing great. He's in Dallas. But they want to know what those guys from the 80s are doing, really. They want to catch up. And it really was a great time for a player to be in Atlanta. And I travel around, and people from all over the country, remember those TBS days. They've adopted a name as TBS Kids, and it sounds like you were a little bit of a TBS
I
kid.
was. I was.
Yeah, it's just it was on, and I think it was on every night. Ted Turner said, we're going to put them on home and away every night. And people are like, that's not going to work. And what they found out, if we weren't playing well, it did affect our home attendance. If we were playing well, it didn't have any effect. People, locally, they'd watch it on TV and they would come down. But, I think it is also a testament to what baseball needs. Baseball just needs exposure. People just need to see it to fall in love with the game. And that's what Ted Turner and that whole thing created, was not only Braves fans, but fans of the game. They just love to, have baseball be a part of your evening every night. Um, and that's the kind of sport baseball is. It's a long, as you know, it's a long, drawn out drama, and a lot of ups and downs. And I might say our announcers, the core three were Ernie Johnson Sr., Pete Van Wieren, and Skip Carey, and they brought people a great broadcast. They were professionals, and they were our broadcasters. People were getting a hometown broadcast, so it really endeared fans, to the players. So people feel connected to that 80's team, those 80's years, just because we were out there, and it was a lot of fun, and I connect now. I do some speaking. I have the restaurant. And when I go to a company to speak, invariably there'll be quite a few TBS kids there that are in their 50s and 40s and 50s and 60s. It's really fun to connect. I think that's the main thing, Brett, is people want to know what I've been doing and what the other guys are doing.
You broke into the big leagues in 1976. I had no idea that you caught. You played first base a little bit. You always think of Dale Murphy. He was an outfielder. But how was that going from, I talked to my dad about it, and it's so strange because I never came anywhere near a pair of shin guards. But Dad was a third baseman in the minor
Really?
league. Yeah, he didn't become a catcher until like AAA. I think he tells me the story. He's like, well, Brett, it was me and Mike Schmidt, and somebody had to make a change, and I guess I was the odd man out. And I said, yeah, Dad, because you couldn't hit the ball over the wall consistently. I said, it gave you a 19-year big league career, and you became an unbelievable catcher. And he laughs about it. But how was that change? Did you expect to be a catcher, or all of a sudden it's like, nope, this is where I'm going to end up?
Well, it was a process. Interestingly enough, I was catching in high school. I was drafted as a catcher. I actually thought I was going to get drafted by the Phillies. They were the only team that flew me out. I was in Portland, Oregon. They were the only team that wanted a pre-draft workout. So they flew me to Philly, and I knew the scout in Portland with the Phillies. So that was the summer of 1974, Brett. I think your dad was there. Would I be right?
Yeah. His first year he was kind of breaking in 72.
Okay. Yeah, he was there. Well, anyway, long story. I thought I had a chance of getting drafted. They ended up taking Lonnie Smith.
Skates.
And yep. And so the one thing I remember about my workout was it was so humid. I can't remember whose bat I grabbed for BP. I think Ray Ripplemeyer. Is that a name? Am I getting that name right?
Ray Ripplemeyer was definitely a coach number 4 for the Phillies. I remember.
Yeah, I think he threw BP to us, and then we went out and they said, "Okay, we're going to run the 60-yard dash. Murphy and Wilson, you're first." And it was Willie Wilson.
Wilson. Good luck.
So I got drafted by the Braves, and it was just catching. Yeah, I was everybody goes, yeah, you're so tall. I go, well, there were a few tall catchers, but my arm, I had a really good arm, and in high school I hit really well. And so I was drafted as a catcher. But, really, Brett just started throwing the ball all over the place, got a little case of the yips, got out of it. And I ended up catching about 80 games in the major leagues. But I just, it just I wasn't playing well enough to be an everyday catcher. And but then the problem for Bobby Cox back then was I started to hit some home runs, and so he's like, well, wait a minute, if Murphy isn't going to catch, where are we going to put him? So he moved me to first base. It didn't work out well there. I learned first base is a lot tougher than it looks. And then Bobby called me in the winter of 79, 80 and said, Murph, what about the outfield? And, as a kid, and, I always tell people, if I was an outfielder moving to catcher, I'd have had big problems, but moving catcher to the outfield, I could run a little bit. I just said, I said to myself, this this is it. I gotta work this out in the outfield. So I just worked as hard as I could and really relaxed mentally because my defense was not major league quality, and I just I felt good and confident. And then my career took off. So Bobby got me to the outfield. That's he had, as Bobby, he doesn't like to give up on guys. He wants things to work out for you, and is always pulling for you. And he just said, let's try the outfield, and he put me right in there. He says, you're going to be starting left field. That's where I started, and moved around a little bit, obviously, during the rest of my career. But he just put me right in there, and let's go.
Yeah, Bobby. Bobby. Speaking of people in Atlanta that been around forever, Bobby Cox. And he was my skipper. And I know he was your skipper for a minute, went back upstairs, and then, eventually came down and went on that, everybody knows about the 90s run and, everything that the Braves have done. We had Brian Snitker on the show a few months ago, and he talked about Atlanta and that culture they built over those years. Snit's been, we had a brief discussion about Snit, what a great guy he was, and how, he's been in Atlanta for so long in every capacity. He goes, Booney, I've done everything you could do in Atlanta. And this last run for him, where I think they won the division the last 5 years, Brian said, I thought the days of having a chance to be a big league manager had passed me by, Brett. And he said, I was okay with that. And next thing you know, I get a phone call and I'm the skipper, and then we're winning World Series. And he said, I can't believe it's real, but real humble guy. You could tell, guy that's done everything, appreciates everything he's had. And obviously right now, kind of reaping the rewards of all that work he's put in all those years. 76, you get your feet wet like we always do. 77, kind of the same. And 78's where you first kind of break through. You hit 23 homers, drive in 79. We're getting to those peak years, when you really, I'm looking at it, Murph, and it's like looking at the numbers, and I'm looking at that stretch that you had from about 82 to 86. And I said, this time of the game, he's got to be the best player in the game. And that's a long time to be the best. If you're the best for a year, it's like, I did pretty good. But that stretch was pretty darn impressive. I want to talk about Joe Torre. Before he was Joe Torre. Because everybody, today I'll be doing a show and they'll say, Booney, how important is the manager? I said, well, it helps to have some good players. And I always bring up Joe Torre. I said, Joe Torre is he's a Hall of Fame manager, revered around the world, got a ton of rings. I said, how was Joe Torre when he was managing the St. Louis Cardinals? Was he this guru? I said, managers can only do so much. Yes, the great ones find a way to unlock that player's potential. That, there's so many different personalities. How do I get the best out of Dale Murphy and the best out of Bret Boone? We might have to take two different approaches. And the great ones know that. They're people person. They're people. But tell me about Joe Torre. Like I said, before he was Joe Torre, I know Joe Torre, the player, was a hell of a player.
I always kind of say it this way. Bobby saved my career, and Joe. I had my best years under Joe because of Joe. Back then, we had hitting coaches, but managers were involved. Joe was a good hitter, won a batting title, good player. And we really just synced up on hitting. And he talked to me all the time. And he was great to play for. You're right. Different personalities than Bobby Cox or than Brian Snitker. But there's guys that kind of have this thing with people that make it motivating to play for them. They kind of exhibit a trust, in you. There's nothing more valuable, nothing more motivating than a relationship with somebody who is leading you, and knowing that guy, that man or woman, trusts you, gives you the freedom to, create out there. I mean, I didn't even think of me as a base stealer until Joe Torre gave me the green light the whole season. He said, you go whenever you want. and I ended up stealing over 20 bases in 82, and then 83 I ended up stealing 30. But I had never thought about that until Joe said, you know what, I think you can steal more. I'm just going to give you the green light. Go ahead, go whenever you want. I mean, if you start messing up and going at stupid times, we're gonna check that. But so you got this guy in Joe that, you're right, has to figure out how to get the best out of everybody, and it's more of a relationship. Not that you have to go to lunch and dinner with your players every night. It's more of, you can say a lot of little things and just demonstrate that you like your guys and that you trust them, you believe in them, and you're pulling for them. Bobby demonstrated that in a lot of ways. One of them was getting kicked out of so many games, and people think, well, that's a weird way. I go, no, that endears you to that manager. He's pulling for you. He's mad if you didn't get a fair shake out there from the umpire. All those kind of things really motivate players, Brett. I mean, money is a great motivator, but I don't think it's the ultimate motivator. There's something about relationships that really work, and great managers have it inherently. I don't think, we don't sometimes go to school. There's a lot of books on it. You can read about leadership and all that stuff. But it really gets down to relationships. And I had a great relationship with Bobby, but Ted Turner fired him, hired Joe Torre. And you're right. A lot of people forget about those years before he became Joe Torre. But, we didn't have a great team. We had a good team, but we won the division in 82. We finished second in 83. 82, 83, 84, we finished second. Padres ran away with it. I think we just clicked, and Joe did a great job for those years. And for some reason, there was a little bit of a discussion within the Braves. We slipped a little bit in 84, and Ted Turner wanted to go a different direction. But man, we had some good years under Joe, and then I was so happy for him to see that future success. But he's got those leadership qualities like good managers have.
Yeah, you bring me back to the early 80s, and you said, we won in 82 and came in second. Back then, you come in second place, you're going home for the winter.
Yeah.
I laugh. I do all these, we get ready for the postseason, and I'm on where they'll have me on talking about the postseason. I said, well, there's 12 freaking spots. I said, when I was a kid, there was 4.
It's crazy.
You've got to win so that 162 and the new format, completely understand it from an entertainment value, from a fan's perspective.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a lot of fun keeping so many cities involved.
Yeah.
And that playoff, I'll tell you, if you make the playoffs, that's a landmine. That's treacherous. You got to win 4 series.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's easier to win the World Series now.
Yeah.
But it's changed because the emphasis isn't on that 162 game grind and the best, kind of emerges. Just different time, but we go forward with everything.
How about Brett? We got into the playoffs in 82. It's 5-game series, and that's it to go to the
5-game series. Right. We just played 162, beat everybody, and we're going to drag it out 5 games. Well, my starting pitcher had a rough day. Oh, well, now it's 4 games.
It was rough. And
we got a tough league.
We got swept by the Cardinals. And it was just like, what just happened? We just had a great 6 months, and then, in a week. It was crazy.
It was great. It was. Another guy I want to talk about is obviously, my opinion, just the top 3 all time. Hank Aaron. Everybody talks about Hank Aaron as a home run hitter, and he's a home run king and all this stuff. He was a lot more than that. I mean, for guys out there that think Hank Aaron just hit home runs, check out his bubblegum card. It's pretty. There's not too many people on this earth that have a more impressive bubblegum card than Hank Aaron. He took over in 76. Obviously, he was the face of the Braves for a lot of years. You become the face of the Braves in his absence, basically. He retired. He comes as an executive, and he remained an executive until he passed away, I think about a year and a half ago. But what a run. And what a man. I got to talk with him a little bit. I was only in Atlanta, like I said, 1 year, 1999. He was around then. And once in a while, I'd get a little brief conversation with Hank, but always one of my favorite guys, always one of my favorite player. Always would talk about, that was my favorite thing when people would talk about Hank Aaron, all the home runs they hit. I said, what about all the bases he stole? And he won some gold gloves and he won a batting title. I said, he wasn't just a home run hitter. This guy was the full deal and one of the greatest ever. Being around him, what was your relationship with Hank?
Well, so again, so fortunate to be able to come through the Braves organization. Unfortunately, my first spring training as a catcher, I drafted in 74. So, they always bring catchers. They need more catchers. So I got invited to spring training in 75, and Hank was with Milwaukee, and he had just got traded. So unfortunately, I didn't get on the field with him in spring training. And then when he retired, he came back and was the director of minor league player personnel, I believe, and maybe a vice president as well. Then I was in the big leagues. So we didn't have a working relationship, so to speak. He was never my boss in that way, but he was always there. We'd always see him. He would come down and talk about hitting occasionally. I'm sure he got frustrated with me at times, the way I approached it. He was careful about that. He liked to be invited by the coaches. He respected their, position, and didn't come down there and just, but his main job was the minor leagues, and he did a great job. Just you got to hand it to him. I mean, it's not easy to go from what he was on the field to an executive and then create a great minor league system, which he did. And so, so very fortunate to be able to, rub shoulders with him. And it was really surreal for, a kid from Portland, Oregon, to really kind of grasp what was going on. I watched him break Babe Ruth's record in April of 74, and then I got drafted by the Braves in June. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But his, the way he handled himself and the great work he did within the civil rights efforts and community and relationships within Atlanta, and what he went through as a player. People say, well, what about Barry Bonds? And, Barry's numbers are in the record books. There's no question. But when you look at Hank's overall career and what he went through, I think the degree of difficulty puts Hank, no matter, not to get into controversy about Barry and all that stuff, but you just look what Hank did and what he went through. I heard him say when he broke Babe's record and those two guys run out on the field, and he doesn't react very kindly to him. He didn't get mad at him, but he's kind of, trying to get these guys off him. He didn't know what was going on. He had so many death threats leading up to the year leading up to breaking Babe's record, that it was the most miserable time he's had. And then he hits the home run, and two guys jump out, from the stands and are following him on the bases. It really made him nervous. His numbers, when you go inside of his numbers, you're right, Bret. You look at him and you're trying to figure out how he did it. Take away his home runs, he's still got 3,000 hits.
It's ridiculous.
He's third all time in hits. I mean, I could be off a couple guys, but that's how many hits he's got. And I was just with the Braves historian recently, Sam Wallace, and we were talking about how good Hank was for so long. He said, right now we would, as Braves fans, we would consider Ronald Acuna the MVP. He's a 5-tool player. At Ronald's pace, Ronald Acuna Jr.'s pace right now, he'd have to get a little bit better. He's getting close to Hank's, but he'd have to get a little bit better, and he'd have to do it for 20 more years.
Yeah.
It's
remarkable.
it just blows your mind. Hank was fantastic. Really grateful to get to know him throughout my career.
The 80s, I talked about it earlier. I mean, you started about 1980, your first All-Star game. You hit 33 home runs. You go 82, you're an All-Star, 82 to 87. 36, 36, 36, 37, 84 and 85, you lead the league in homers. 82 and 83, those are your MVP years. You're the RBI champ. You win the Silver Slugger, you win the Gold Glove. 82, 83. And I know I've read a lot about Dale Murphy. I know what kind of man you are and the integrity and how you carry yourself. But 82, 83, because I remember going to Seattle in the early 2000s, and we were a big deal, and I thought I was a big deal. It's tough as a young man, for you especially. You're on TBS. You're winning MVPs, and you just didn't win one. You win two. Was it easy for Dale Murphy to just keep a solid head on his shoulders, or like all of us young men, we get caught up in it?
Yeah. Well, I have, I say Joe Torre kind of got me into those best years of my career. But I can't thank my wife enough, Nancy, to keep me level-headed during those years. It was the attention, the lack of privacy was a real challenge for us. I tried to, I remember meeting Johnny Miller, and a few years after his heyday, still competing, but one of the most greatest golfers ever. He said, "Hey, you're having a lot of success." He goes, "There's one word you need to learn, and it's no." And so I think it really took a lot of communication between Nancy and I to try to keep this thing rolling. Remember what's most important. But you're exactly right. It's a challenge for an athlete in our culture when they start doing things well. People treat you differently. They want to buy you dinner. They want to give you stuff. You start thinking you're that person.
Yeah, you're above the program.
yeah, exactly. And but then I really feel that Nancy and I had, we had a lot of talks, about my time and just the push and pull of keeping family time sacred. And so I think that's what's helped me get through that, really, because it means you're doing really well, right?
That's right.
But it also brings in all these other challenges. And now, you were mentioning about feeling old and seeing these new stadiums. I mean, isn't it weird, Bret, how fast it went? It was so fleeting that it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remind yourself that when you are a kid going through it, you think this is the way life is going to be. And then all of a sudden, I got grandkids, but it just in a blink of an eye, it just happens so fast. So you got to be careful because you don't want to throw away your future and all the things that are going to come later on in life, by all this adulation you're getting. You just got to be careful. It's a lot of guys, we've seen it. A lot of professional entertainers and athletes get really mixed up about that. And it was a challenge in some ways. I'm thankful for the success, and it's hard to even talk about it, isn't it, Booney? Like, people wait, you mean that wasn't a great thing? No, it's a great thing.
Right.
But it's really hard to explain it. I guess is the thing, what you go through with the popularity. It can really mess with your mind.
Right. And you see it. I remember it when I was in early 2000s, Seattle. We were rocking. I'm in my, having my best years.
Right,
and I remember thinking, you get caught up in it. And I remember thinking, my wife would say, "Hey, let's go to lunch today." And maybe I was in a rut. I was 0 for my last 10. I didn't want the grandma on the street to give me that look like, "Oh, little Bret, are you okay?" Yes, I'm fine. That's why I didn't want to go out. It's like, I didn't want that. I don't need any pity. I'm a big boy. I can handle this. But you're right. You get caught up in it. It's over before you know it. I
Oh,
grew up with dad, I
yeah.
was a year away from playing against my dad in the big leagues. And I tell him all the time, he choked. You couldn't play another year. But I grew up as a kid in that atmosphere in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
running around, and I'm at Veterans Stadium every day, and I think that's normal for every kid gets to do this. And then I play my career, and it's like it's never going to be over. And all of a sudden, one day I'm sitting at home, retired, going, "Who the hell am I?"
Yeah.
I
No,
was this baseball player for a long time,
exactly.
and you wake up and no, I'm that whatever you did on the baseball field, that's never going away. But then I started, when I was retired for a while, and the last 5 or 6, 7 years, I thought, no, I'm a dad. I got 4 kids. I got to raise and be a really good example for them, and hopefully, support them in whatever they get
Yeah.
into, whatever endeavors they get into. And there's a lot more to life, and as you do get farther away from the game, uh, you're allowed. It's easier to laugh at yourself a
Yeah.
little bit
That's,
more.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
always tell people, I said, yeah, don't you know who I used to be, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
how serious as
Yeah.
players we were a serious deal, because you
Yeah.
always talk. You were talking earlier about you know, hey, my privacy, and I need my. I mean, we took ourselves pretty serious
Yeah.
when we were in that
That's true.
bubble. Like, don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
stay behind the ropes. And then
Yeah.
one day there's nobody's behind the ropes. You're like, hey, take the ropes down.
there's there's no, yeah, and
Hey,
it's,
let's talk a game. You want to
yeah,
talk? I got I
yeah,
got I got some stories.
yeah, it's like instantaneous. There's
Yeah,
no ropes. It's
there's no
like, wait,
ropes.
yeah. I think Booney, what you went through is especially a challenge. Growing up in a major league clubhouse and around the game, I mean that, if for your whole uh, what till you retired, that's all you knew. That would be an especially challenging situation. I think it's a testament to your parents and your makeup, uh, because like you said, we had you grew up with it. This is what I am. Nancy remembers when Chad was about 8 years old. They were walking through a grocery store and there was a contest, and the winner of the contest got to go to spring training with the Braves and see some games. And Chad looked at Nancy and goes, "Well, wait, that's what they get. That's the prize. They get to go to spring training. What's so cool about that?" I mean,
That's
it's
right.
like it's like that was his life. But it is a weird it's a weird dynamic. And I think especially hats off to you and your family, because that can be real challenging. And boy, it is over before you know it. And it's funny, I I never get it out of my system. I still have a passion. I'd love to be out there playing, but the years have gone on. I know I can't do that anymore. But it is not. When I retired, I thought it was just going to be up, on to new things. And man, my first 3 or 4 years after I was retired, I don't think I was very pleasant. It was a much bigger adjustment than I thought it was going to be. And again, Nancy and I had to keep that communication going, because it messes with your head. And you're
It really
exactly right.
does.
Who am I? What am I going to
Right,
do? I
right.
still got most of my life to live.
And I didn't plan it out very well. My dad did. He went right from playing. He went on the field and he managed in AAA was his first job. He was managing against me in the PCL. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, Dad, you just played all these years. You really want to just go do this right away? Because my brain didn't think like that. My brother went right into the media right off the field, and he was networking at the end of his career. And I thought, these people are crazy wanting to do that. I remember when it was coming to the end for me, I thought to myself, when the media would say, oh, is this going to be it? And I thought, the day I can't play this position, I'm going to go off in the sunset, and I don't want anything to do with baseball anymore. And that's how I approached it. And you talked about when you first got off the field, those years you probably weren't pleasant all the time.
Yeah.
man, I went through a crazy time where I just thought, I'm going to go play golf and be on vacation. And I did. I woke up one day thinking, who am I? What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
They didn't have a plan for this. I didn't take this
Right.
course on how to
Right.
finish a career and then go be successful in life. It's something that you that you have to acquire, and it's by
Yeah.
getting knocked down and sitting back up. It's pretty cool now having the knowledge that we both have. If we have
Yeah.
the opportunity to talk to young players,
Right.
give them a little advice. Hey, what did I do wrong? Here's some things that I did positive that I would suggest doing. Here's some things I wish I would have done, kid.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. A lot of guys are going to listen or they're not going to listen, but it's interesting. This thing life, Dale, it's an interesting thing.
It's not for wimps.
It's not for minors. Yeah. After 93, you retire. You finish with Philly and the Rockies. Unbelievable career. But you mentioned Ted Turner earlier. I played for Ted. I remember Game 2, the World Series. Ted came down to the locker room, gave us a speech, gave us a stock tip that we didn't know was a stock tip, walked out, kind of laughing. Jane Fonda's with him under his arm, and kind of leaves us, like players looking at each other like, you think he was serious about that stock? Nah, Ted just owns it. Like 2 or 3 days later, thing goes up 280%. We're all sitting there going, he was serious. He couldn't be serious. Tell us he was serious to be insider trading. Anyway, Ted was, I didn't see Ted much. I saw him at the games. Like I said, he gave us a pep talk in the World Series. I played for an interesting lady in Cincinnati, Marge Schott. I'm telling you, every day was an adventure. At the end of the day, she wanted to win, though. She really did.
Yeah.
Cheap as could be. If I cracked a bat, I'd have to go turn it in to get a new bat. That's how she had the rules set up. But she did want to win. She did want to win. Interesting. We've all played for a bunch of different type of ownership. I think the most important thing I get from players and ex-players, and especially how I used to think was, I don't care what you do as the owner, but the fact that you have our back, those 25 guys in that clubhouse, that's the most important thing. George Steinbrenner never played for him, but from afar as a player, I thought, I could put up with George Steinbrenner blasted me in the newspaper, doing whatever he wanted if I wasn't playing good. Because I know every year going into spring training, the goal is to win the World Series. And everybody doesn't get that opportunity, and every organization doesn't get that opportunity. Just briefly, just tell me a little bit about Ted and what it was like, him as an owner. Was he very involved? Was he on, was he hands-on?
Yeah,
I know he was in the dugout for a minute. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's funny to me.
Yeah, I was in AAA that year, and he gave Dave Bristol a leave of absence and wanted to manage for a day. Phil Niekro was pitching that day, and he's making out the lineup, and he goes, "Hey, Nuxie, where do you want to hit?" and Nuxie goes, "Well, Ted, I'm pitching today. I probably ought to hit ninth." He goes, "You sure? Okay, all right, I'll put you ninth." No, I would say exactly what you said. Ted wanted to win. The price of the ball clubs now of a franchise are so big that it's hard to maintain those family and personal ownerships. There's a few, and I think it's very valuable for a community to have an owner that feels the community interest and an interest to compete. The Braves are owned by Liberty Media in Colorado. They've still maintained, that feeling with Terry McGurk as president. But it's different. You don't see the owner there. It's the cost of, keeping these teams together and the expense. It's a bigger corporation type thing now. But anyway, getting back to playing for Ted, I'd agree with you. He was unconventional. He'd say something. I wish he would have made more stock tips for us, but mentioned that to us. But that's just like Ted. You didn't know what was going to happen when he came in the clubhouse, but he wanted to beat Steinbrenner and get to the World Series just because it was personal. And I have nothing. I'm grateful to have played for Ted. I I think Ted was trying to sign Reggie Jackson before Reggie went to California. And I remember Chris Chambliss saying that Reggie was like, I don't know if I want to play for someone like Ted. And to me, it was great. So Reggie didn't sign, but Ted just was a competitor. That's why a lot of these ideas he had, 24-hour news, cable TV, sports entertainment out around the world, that were different. He thought different, and sometimes things didn't work, but when they hit, they hit. And he was great to play for. Like you say, he wanted to win. You felt like every day he said he was competitive, and thankful for the chance to play for Ted.
You're getting involved with the group, Big League Utah's expansion, about an expansion franchise potentially for Major League Baseball. I'm going to let you tell the audience about what's going on.
Sure.
Tell me about the group, and where's the competition? Other parts of the country. Okay.
Well, yeah. Thanks for the chance just to pitch what we're doing out here. Where do I start? So the baseball said they want to expand, sometime to 2 more. It's not on a definite schedule. The commissioner said we got to figure out what Tampa's doing and what Oakland's doing. He said that for quite a few years, and then he wants to expand. So, you got to register with MLB that you have a group that you're interested. And I'm very optimistic. I was with the Portland group there. I'm from Portland, living here in Utah now. And they came to me and said, "Hey, we got a group." I was like, tell me about it. And so I'm really excited. Again, the commissioner said, we want a team in the East. We want a team in the West. We feel like things have got to the point in Salt Lake City and the surrounding communities to where it probably wouldn't have worked 20 years ago. But with the way the things work now with smaller stadiums, probably be around a 35,000 seat stadium, mixed use facility, much like the Battery Atlanta. And the demographics have changed in Utah drastically with population base, and it's continuing to grow. The business climate is really good. So I feel we're going to have a very compelling case. The key points, I'll narrow it down to the key points, what we have going for us here. I feel like we have a great location. If Vegas ends up with a team, we'll be in the west part of the United States. We're not on the coast, obviously. But what we have, Booney, I think the key thing we have is we have Gail Miller, wife of Larry Miller, and they owned the Jazz for 20, 25 years, and always had a class organization and did things right. And Larry Miller has passed on, but Gail Miller is running the Miller companies, and they had several hundred probably dealerships, car dealerships. They sold the Jazz to Ryan Smith, and she's interested in getting back into professional sports. And she's got
a little cash.
Yes. And so, yes. And you know how much it costs. I think the cost, Booney, is around $2 million. If they say you got a team, the first thing you got to do is write a check for $2 billion,
right.
$2 billion. And then you go to work on building your club. So, we have speaking of owners, we have a great face to a local interested community member that wants to bring professional sports here. We have property near the airport, between the airport and Salt Lake City, very close, 5 minutes from the airport, 5 minutes from, maybe 10 and 10. Great infrastructure. We have property, we have ownership, and ownership that has been through it. So I think I'm optimistic as you can get. It's like bidding for the Olympics. You put everything in, and see. It's probably a 3 to 5 year project. We'll see where baseball is at that time, and I'm happy to be a part of Big League Utah. It's an exciting thing, and a great project, and we'll leave a lot of good things. Involvement in youth sports leading up to it. If we don't get a team, the Miller companies, again, I didn't mention, headed by Steve Starks, who was president of the Jazz at one time, wants to leave a legacy of being involved with youth if we don't get a team. So they're already working on that, and it's exciting. I can't wait to see what happens.
Very cool. A few more, and I'll let you get out of here. Watching Dale Murphy. This is Bret Boone, the kid, watching Dale Murphy. Clean cut guy, always says the right thing. Kind of a straight arrow. That's my interpretation of you. Kind of like Bob Boone, my father. I mean, Bob always knowing the right thing, always playing the game the right way, coming, and I kid about it, but I respect it a lot. And
thank you.
It's really a character. It's just a real positive thing. I want to ask Dale Murphy, how first of all, how much do you think athletes, people in our position, do you think we're responsible to be role models to the kids? I personally, I always did think, yes. I have I'm on the stage. I have a responsibility in my mind to appear and do the right thing when I could. Sometimes I didn't, but I made that effort. What do you feel about that?
I think most athletes feel that. I know Charles Barkley, I think he did a commercial for Nike, many years ago, and kind of came through with this kind of bombastic, only as Charles Kennedy, I'm nobody's role model and stuff like that. He was kind of he had this persona, but Charles believes differently. I know that. I've been with Charles. He's great with people. He's great with kids. I think most people feel like you are. Here's the deal. You're going to be a role model, whether you like it or not.
Right. What do you want to do with it? Right.
Yeah. And so you do your best. That's all you can. Yeah, you're human. You're going to, even make mistakes that are going to get very publicized sometimes. Those things happen. I just think most men and women involved in professional sports realize in our culture what sports means. I mean, it's a big deal in America and throughout the world. And if you just, respect others, be yourself, and try to help others along the way, and be involved in your community. And I think, Booney, these guys do a lot. I mean, there is a lot of money raised. I just don't mean baseball, but with the money that athletes are making now, they have foundations, and they're doing so much good. Occasionally we get, something weird happens with one of the athletes, but that's what I tried to remember. Just treat each other with respect. You can't do everything, but you can decline respectfully. You know what I mean? You don't have to just say, no, I don't want to do that. You can say, hey, I got a lot of, you got to learn to say no. But if you can do stuff, get involved in your community and help out. And I think most athletes realize that and try to. Occasionally there's a few that don't, but I think they're very few.
You probably were a lot like me. I'm a purist. I'm
yeah, I agree.
I love the game the way it is. I don't like less change is better for me. I think that some necessary change, obviously, as we go on in life. I don't want to be a grandpa saying, no, it's the best. Keep it exactly how when I played. It makes us sound ridiculous. Things got to go on. Things have to evolve. But at first, when this new kind of generation was reeled in with the celebrations and I know for you, you probably were looking at it going, whoa, how can we do that? Then Griffey comes out, and Griffey's a teammate of mine and one of my favorite guys. He's a good guy, but he says, just let the kids play.
Yeah.
And I'm, this is at the very beginning, and I'm going, let the kids play. What is this? What is going on with all these celebrations? I'm kind of numb to it now. I
Oh, yeah.
see it's just a part of the game now, and you kind of get over yourself real quick as an ex-player, and they talk about the rules. Well, back in your day, the unwritten rules, and I thought about it. And I said, you know what the unwritten rules are? The unwritten rules are whatever the people playing currently decide they are. In our
Yeah.
game, this wouldn't fly in our day, in your day, in my day. But it does now. History will judge each and every one of our generations and
Right.
how they thought of it. But it doesn't mean and as an ex-player, I step away and go, this is these guys' game. Yeah, I love some of the new stuff they do. I think it's fun, it's entertaining. And I like some of the stuff that we did. And I think there's a mix in there some way. I always say the current player can learn a lot from the guys that came before him, but the guys that came before him, I think we can learn a lot from the current players. I know you have 8 kids. A couple of your boys played in the NFL for years, and they're always probably talking to dad. Hey, dad, what do you think? But now you look, man, I'm finding myself, I can learn stuff from my son. I ask my son questions or my daughter questions, and they're in their 20s and they give me answers. I'm like, that's a good idea. I would have never come up with that. So I
Yeah.
think there's something there where we can learn from one another. But what do you think about this? And would Dale Murphy, if he were playing today in his heyday, hit a home run, what are you going to put on in the dugout? Because they all got a dance now. They got a hat or something. I couldn't imagine you doing it. You'd be like, come on, I can't do that.
Oh, that's a great question. If I was playing now, like you said, Brett, we'd probably be. Yeah, you can't take me from the '80s and put me in now.
Right.
It wouldn't work. But I agree with you, and that's a great way to put it. I had never thought about saying it that way, but it is the current generation writes the unwritten rules. It's different. There's so many different things going on. But these kids grew up with their highlights on YouTube since they were 10. They've been on screen. They're used to the social media stuff. I think we need young people to, I don't think we looked like we were having very much fun back in the day, right?
Right. Oh, you'd hit a home run and what's
Yeah.
going on? I used to tell people, I said, listen, what was going on inside my brain was fireworks.
Yeah.
But I had to stay stoic. I couldn't even smile. I
Yeah.
had to get into the dugout. Now, when the cameras are away, I'm going crazy with my
Yeah.
teammates. But
Yeah.
I had to show how cool I was that,
Yeah.
hey, I'm under control here. We're inside. I'm going, ah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you. I'm fine with. I think I think when people ask me what's too far, I think you always kind of know what takes celebrations too far. But I think what happens is it when you make it personal. If you're looking at the pitcher, while you're doing something, or you're talking to the pitcher, or you make it personal about your competition between the other team. That's where it crosses the line. I just as a side note, there's a lot of things going on in college baseball, for instance, about celebrations. What I'm noticing in college, they're looking at the pitcher sometimes. They're really they're kind of crossing a line to where it's becoming a personal thing against, maybe it's that college spirit and they really don't like each other, but they, it kind of crosses the line sometimes. And for me, but now I'm good with celebrations. I think, there's some things I thought just came to my mind. I think Marcelo Zuna hit a home run last year and stopped at first base and took a selfie. I mean, even if I was his teammate, I would have been, hey, look.
Right.
But Brett, I think you said it perfectly. It's their game. We're not playing. It's their game. Let them, don't act like, everything. And you're right. Oh man, our kids can teach us a lot. And hey, they're having fun.
They are.
I'll give them that. We were probably a little bit too far with our stoicism, as you say, but you're right. We had to put our head down. I remember when high fives were invented.
I go to the old tape and it's not even a high five, right? It's the handshake.
Right. Oh yeah. I remember
you can't go up here.
No,
that is correct. You're going to get hit in the head your next at bat.
Oh, I remember giving a high five, and I'm like, Man, am I showing anybody up?
I hope nobody saw that one.
Yeah.
1994, and this is one thing I think is really cool. You know, a lot being in the Team Hall of Fame, that's great. You get your number retired, that's a big deal. We were just in Atlanta. I saw there were 11 numbers retired for the Braves. Yours is one of them, number 3. I really think that's cool because and for you going to the ballpark, seeing that number, just kind of knowing, and I know it's not an egotistical thing, but nobody's ever going to wear your number ever in the history of the game for the Atlanta Braves ever again. I think it's a pretty cool thing. 1994, you get the call. Probably with the numbers you put up in Atlanta, you probably had an idea that, hey, I got a pretty good chance of getting my number retired. But when you actually get that phone call and they say we're going to retire your number, it's got to be a special day for you.
Oh yeah, it's hard to even grasp, that fact that no one's ever going to wear it again. I mean, I don't, just first of all, to be up with the numbers that I was there with, that was, just think, you just start reflecting on your life and you're like, just very fortunate. And, I love the Braves organization. They took a chance on me, and they had to stick with me, as I mentioned earlier, through some ups and downs. And I'm just very grateful. It's just it is a humbling feeling. It's hard to put into words, Brett. It really is. But I don't know how to even say it. They asked me a few. So we were trying to sign. I can't remember. What was I going to say? Alex. Who am I thinking of? Alex Rodriguez.
Alex Rodriguez. A-Rod was number 3. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Braves were thinking about signing him.
And the number controvery.
Yeah. And so I can't even remember what I said. I probably said, sure, whatever.
Let him wear it. Just put an asterisk. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a really humbling feeling, and it's a real honor, Brett. I don't really know how else to say it, but who would have thought, back in the day that something like that would happen? Very grateful.
And I think, I didn't want to talk because a lot of people talk to you about this. You've always been on the bubble of Dale Murphy. Is he going to get in the Hall of Fame? Is he not? It's been a thing with, for me, from a guy that I played with against a lot, Freddie McGriff. It was always Freddie. Is he going to get in? Or is he not? I go through your. I just look at your numbers and what you did. There's not too many 2-time MVPs out there. There's not too many guys that led the league in home runs a couple times, RBIs a couple times, 7 times All-Stars. It's all there. I understand the complexity of it. And, there's magic numbers. There were magic numbers in the 70s and 80s. It's 3,000. It's 500. Things are changing. But the world's changing. And I think I didn't want to done. I don't want to ask you about it. You get asked about it enough. I just want to say, as a peer, as an ex-player, I look at it and I said, Dale Murphy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I hope one day that you get put in, because I think it is, I'm looking at it, I'm going, this guy was the best player. I mentioned it to you. He was the best player in the world for a 6-year period. That's enough for me. You dominated an era enough where that's enough for me. And I'm pretty tough on those Hall of Fame because I have a lot of opinions about it. But I just want to tell you personally, I'm not just saying it because you're on the show. I really hope you do it one day, and I think you will. I think one day that committee will get and say Dale deserves to be there. So I just wanted to say that. What a career. Awesome. This is a lot of fun catching up. You're a Clemente Award winner there's too many awards, Dale. I can't mention them all. But it was a real pleasure talking to you and coming on the show. I'm going to let you out of here with this. All the things you've accomplished in life, things you've been involved with, the charities, the awards. What are you most proud of? It could be anything.
Wow. Again, who would have thought going through my career that there's one title that means so much to me, and that's being called Grandpa.
Very cool. Very cool.
There's nothing like being a grandpa.
I think I'm getting close. My daughter's getting married in November, so
It's
All right.
it's going to blow your mind again, because you're like, wait a minute. But when you become a grandpa, it's like, it's incredible. But what can I say? I think I was lucky to play. I played hard. I was grateful for the chance. And I think getting through it, Booney, getting through that kind of thing with I thank my mom and dad for I inherited a something that they gave me to respect others, do your best, and I think that's the main thing. My mom and dad just really respected everybody, and I tried to do that throughout my career. And so now that those things are past, I'm just really thankful for Nancy, our kids, and our grandkids. It means everything to me. It really does. I love to talk about the old days, but man, after a while, they become really, really old days. And I love what's going on currently in the Murphy family. A lot of exciting things, and so very grateful to be a grandpa and a dad and a husband to Nancy.
Very cool. Dale Murphy, it was an honor. Thanks for coming on. This was great.
Thanks,
For all you out there listening to the Boone podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.